any chance that he does what Baker does and takes a pay cut?
Well, again, this is what we were just talking about with these two guys. In a vacuum, it's pretty easy to figure this out. It's not in a vacuum. Jimmy makes like $27 million, a lot more than $19 million. And he immediately went back to whatever, almost $15 million. So would Jimmy, like, we see how hard it is for teams to pay guys $20 million a year. I mean, is Jimmy Garoppolo taking a $8 million pay cut, or is he just going to be like, cut me, screw you? And there are some complications about physical, or the Niners on the hook for $7 million. I think there are some people question some of the variables. Well, to me, I don't know if anyone truly knows, like beside like Parag and the people in the league. I think a lot of people on the internet think they know, like, well, let's let him get cut and see what happens and who owes who money. Like I'm always fascinated by that. Like the Browns thing was clear. The fifth year option was guaranteed for Sam, for Baker. So if you cut a guy on a 5th year option, you are on the hook. Honestly, it's pretty impressive. Baker gave up $3 million, which wouldn't you say in the NFL is pretty unprecedented? Guys give up guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Jimmy's money is not truly guaranteed because they could cut him. But would Jimmy take a quote unquote pay cut to facilitate a trade to, somewhere, which we all think's Cleveland, but I do think if Jimmy Garoppolo just said, I'll give you back 15, you pay me $12 million, does that make him more desirable to other teams? Like, it is a quarterback league, and teams, most teams do not have quarterbacks they feel great about.
Well, the team I think about is, we can get to teams in a second, actually.
The Texans too. I mean, they're just, but I do think if you told me Jimmy Garoppolo, the way his contract played out for $140 million, his contract this year was $9 million. I think people would have way more interest.
I think he's in play for the Patriots at that point.
He might already be on the Patriots, even injured, right?
Yeah.
He might have just brought him back.
So, but in terms of the pay cut, like the reason Garoppolo would take a pay cut, there's only one reason for Garoppolo to take a pay cut, which is the reason Baker took a pay cut. Actually, it's a little bit of a different reason because Jimmy's money is not fully guaranteed. If he's not on the roster.
And Baker's not guaranteed. Baker took a pay cut, not guaranteed to start, right?
That's true. Yeah. But I mean, really, Baker, as you said, is staring at no options, basically. This was the best of bad options for Baker. Like in the movie Argo, where Bryan Cranston character, they're gonna we're gonna ride these people hiding in the country. We're gonna ride them out on bikes. And they're like, is this a good option? They're like, sir, of all our bad options, this is our best bad option. So this was Baker's best bad option.
I could push back and say that he could have just demanded, screw you, cut me, get all my 18, and then go to the Panthers for 1 and make actually more. But
yeah. That to me, that's where I say it is different with Jimmy, because with Jimmy, his reason to accept a pay cut is if the Niners essentially buy the pick from the team that acquires him. So they pay $5 million for a 5th round pick. Let's just say
whatever for 4.
Yeah, whatever the number is. And that team, Jimmy agrees, okay, instead of making 26 this year, or instead of getting cut and then signing with the Browns for $10 million, I'll accept $10 million from the Browns and $4 million from the Niners. The Niners are buying that pick for $4 million, and I make 14, right? That would be the incentive.
And then do an incentive like, you hit 20 touchdowns, you start 13 plus games, you can easily make $10 million back and get basically the number or something, right?
Yeah. I'd make his incentive on games, all the games, but
or like a game
playing 13 games. I know I'm getting. He's missing 4 or 5. So, but that would be the incentive to take a pay cut if you're Garoppolo.
That was like a Don Yee comment by me. 12 incentive.
now you could argue that Jimmy is in a little bit of a different place with Baker. Like Jimmy, maybe Jimmy would value just being the starter more than an extra $4 million. I don't know. He's made a lot of money, right?
Well, they were both free agents and both completely healthy. I think Jimmy would have more value than Baker simply because people like Jimmy Garoppolo, this is not my opinion. I don't know the guy. I'm just basing on the league. People do not like Baker Mayfield. I'm talking about as a person. One guy's red flag, not as a criminal, just as a questionable person. And one guy is very well liked, except by Edelman and Martellus Bennett 7 years ago. People are like, I got a lot of what were your takes? I'm like, yeah, that was 2016. They have their opinion. Like, I do think we've seen Jimmy kind of battle through. Also a little different. Like, I'm going to fucking lay it. I'm not trying to defend Jimmy here, but I'm going to lay on the line. Like, you guys are going to get rid of me and Tom's going to come back. Like, it's not exactly apples to apples of Edelman and these guys laying on the line, like, you guys are lifelong Patriots. Like, ultimately, Tom's getting rid of my ass.
I think I watched Jimmy Garoppolo, and he proved to be a pretty tough guy.
I do think it's fair to say that maybe he did make a business decision back with the Patriots.
It's possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys clearly believe that.
Don might have told him. His agent might have said that happens.
But don't you agree that, like, Edelman, Brady, those guys, they believe that he did make a business decision? Like, that's their opinion. They were there.
Yeah.
And Julian is not really, like, he's not Draymond Green here, just throwing out random stuff. Like, he's
no, he didn't go on a campaign.
But he is a Tom guy, so it's like I think, you know, there are agendas.
Well, this is a different business decision. I mean, there's a lot on the line here for him. But ultimately, the Niners are not keeping him on the roster week 1 of the season, right? He's not going to be their backup quarterback for $26 million.
No.
So,
even though Johnny Lynch said that they have it allocated.
Well, they do. Well, they're not spending it.
He's on the team. Yeah.
There's no other free agents for them to go get right now. Is Deshaun Jackson available?
I don't know. I see him podcasts like every other week.
He might actually be available.
Yeah. I feel like I Am Athlete is basically just the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles.
And like Shady McCoy, Deshaun. But they talk shit about Donovan. What if Andy Reid just quit the Chiefs and became a co-host on that podcast?
Yeah, I Am Athlete with Andy Reid.
How good would that be? Brandon Marshall.
I think they added. I see Pac-Man a lot on their stuff now.
Yeah, Pac-Man. Yep. So, I mean, the question then is, like, if he did decline to take a pay cut, or if he accepted a pay cut and the market is set, all it takes is a 5th-round pick and $3 million. Put it that way: if all it took was a 5th-round pick and $3 million to get Jimmy Garoppolo, would more teams than the Browns be interested in him?
One thing I think that both guys had going for them, Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And when he signs for whatever, this number might be a little high, a little low, $35 million. Never forget, the 5th-year option is not included on that number, right? It's separate. That's a 4-year contract. The 5th-year option is separate. Baker Mayfield's already rich. So it was eating $3 million. Ultimately, he's made, once you add the $15 million, let's just pick $50 million. Jimmy Garoppolo, given $7, $8, $10 million back, Jimmy Garoppolo has made now over $100 million playing football. So when you are rich, it's always the agents push back on the mid-round picks negotiating, like they don't have as much leverage. And it is true. Debo's a decent example, even though he's made $4 million, but relative to what he's about to make, like you see McLaurin got, when we were screwing around, $50 million guaranteed or whatever. Like, I understand when all you've made is $3 or $4 million. Like, I'm putting $50 million in front of you. Do you want that? If I'm Khalil Mack and, like, I'm holding out for 90, well, it's easier to do when I've already made 30, right? Like, yeah, I can chill for a couple weeks.
Right.
It's another thing. It's like, I've only made $2.2 million, factor in taxes. I actually only have $220,000 in my bank account, right, that I've saved. Other than that, I've been paying out. I've been living. I've had to buy some cars. I had to buy a place to live. So it's,
as John Moran said, rollies for everybody.
Yeah, it is. Baker's rich. Jimmy is rich. So you can, I do think when you have money in the bank and you're a multimillionaire, when it comes to quote unquote giving millions back, because that's Baker gave $3 million back. That is not nothing. Jimmy gives $7-8 million. That's still $7-8 million. I think if you can take a big picture approach, which is like what you said Baker did, what Jimmy would have to do, it's possible when you have cash. Harder when it's like Terry McLaurin. Let's think the big picture. Big picture. Shit, I was taking the 3rd round.
I think Debo is 100% a great example of that, right?
Yeah, he's kind of got forced into this. I'm not rescinded, but I'll take your contract.